Okay, you should be live.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick O'Riordan, Interim Director at the Department of Building Inspection. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Today, we will kick off DBI's new Public Advisory Forum, which replaces the Public Advisory Committee that we held in the past. Through this forum, we hope to provide an open and thoughtful meeting that gives you, our customers and stakeholders, an opportunity to discuss and provide feedback on how we can better serve you. We want to hear from you and hear your ideas. So as part of our agenda today, we'll provide an update on our permit services. Can you move on to the next slide, John, please? Thank you. As part of our agenda today, we'll provide an update on our permit services. You'll also hear from our partners at SF Planning and Fire Department and Public Works. I want to thank and recognize our permitting agency partners joining us today: Elizabeth Waddy from SF Planning, Richard Brown of the Fire Department, and Gregory Slocum of Public Works. We'll then give you an update on legislation that affects our department and many of you. We'll end by taking your suggestions for future topics for the next forum. I started my role as interim director in mid-March, 2 days after the stay-home order was put in place. The past several months have been eventful, to say the least. My vision and my values are to provide transparency in our services, to maximize efficiency in the delivery of these services, and to keep our team accountable to our stakeholders and to our customers. I believe in great customer service for DBI to maintain a proactive, open, and collaborative approach to engaging with stakeholders, customers, and partners. That is why I believe this forum has such an important role in providing us an opportunity to hear from you, our customers and stakeholders. The health crisis has greatly affected DBI's permit services, which we designed for face-to-face interactions. Over the last several months, we have adjusted to the limitations on our services, and I have heard feedback from many of our customers about the need for us to address bottlenecks and delays. We've been working to refine our processes and have implemented various initiatives to help us increase the number of permits we're issuing every day. We appreciate your patience and as we continue to adjust to our new reality. Some of our initiatives have come from ideas we have heard from you, our customers, such as the Saturday Permit Day we held on October 3rd to provide an extra day for customers to file for over-the-counter permits. Another thing we heard from our customers was their frustration at getting Eventbrite tickets for over-the-counter without plans and fire-only permits. We heard you, and now we have a first-come, first-served system that's working very well and allows customers to walk out with their permits within a couple of hours. Also today, we launched a waitlist appointment system for over-the-counter with plans permits to address the long wait times. We are adding appointments and moving people up in line so you can get what you need faster. We appreciate hearing from you, so please continue to provide us with your feedback, and thank you for joining us today to collaborate with us on ways to make the system better. Christine Gasparek, Assistant Director at DBI, will provide you a brief update on our permit services. You'll all have an opportunity to provide us your feedback during the discussion portion. Christine?
Good afternoon. I'm going to start with slide 7, John. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our permit services here at the Department of Building Inspection, since the shelter in place went into effect, and then how we've adjusted since then as the city has gradually reopened. At a high level, the timeline for how we got from there to here, in March and April, we were mostly closed to the public and we had limited permit services available. That's when people were asked to stay at home, and so a lot of our staff were also staying at home, or were also deployed for disaster service work. And then in April, we launched the electronic plan review system for all projects, and we took in more than 7,000 permit applications during that period. So it was really more than we could keep up with. And we realized that the over-the-counter permits that are more than 90% of the permits that we issue every day, those could be done more efficiently through paper. So we launched our curbside service on June 24th. It really significantly increased the number of permits we were able to issue. And then at the end of July, we moved to our new building at 49 South Van Ness. This was a move that had been planned for years. And then a month later, we converted most of the projects that we take into paper on August 17th. And that was really because we had so many projects that were coming in through the electronic plan review system. And it was really, our staff had just gotten trained on that system, and it was really too much for us to manage. And so we are now going back to our core services, which, you know, as the director said, were designed for face-to-face interactions and paper applications. And so through that, John, can you move to the next slide? Through that, I can show you what a difference that has made. So before shelter in place, before the pandemic, we issued about 110 permits a day. During the period where we were using only electronic plan review, that went down to about 50 permits a day. And then when we added the curbside, we were able to get it up to 75, 80 permits a day. And now that we are implementing new initiatives, which I'll talk about a little bit more, we've gotten that number up to approximately 100 permits a day. And we are continuing to innovate and add new initiatives to continue to get that number up. In addition, we issue 130 trades permits a day on average, and that's the electrical, mechanical, plumbing permits that people apply for online and are automatically generated. They're no review permits. So on the next slide, we talk about our current permit processes. As I said, we converted all the over-the-counter permits to paper, and we are bringing in our new in-house review permits in paper. The auto-generated online are the trades permits that I just discussed, plus re-roofing permits that we launched last week, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We will expedite any emergency permits, so if there's fire damage to a structure or some kind of an emergency situation, we will expedite those permits. And the permits that are still in electronic plan review are the in-house review permits that had already been submitted electronically when we were using only electronic plan review, as well as 100% affordable housing and development agreement projects. We are also taking those in online. So our changes to our in-person over-the-counter services, we were calling it curbside, but in our new building, we're pretty far from the curb, so we're calling it in-person over-the-counter services. And that's kind of evolved as we've seen what's worked and what hasn't worked. So in the mornings from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., we have Monday through Friday, we have a drop-in service for over-the-counter without plans. And we say 35 customers, but really we try to take in as many people as we can as long as we're able to process the permits in around that period of time. And then from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. Monday through Thursday, we have a drop-in service for fire-only permits. Those are the permits that require only fire department review. And then from 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., we take in over-the-counter with plans permit applications by appointment. And then people are also coming in throughout that time to pick up permits and and to drop off revisions and such. So as the director mentioned, we heard feedback from customers that they wanted an extra day to be able to come in for over-the-counter permits. So we hosted a permit day on Saturday, October 3rd, and that was a special Saturday event that we opened to add another day for people to come in for permits. Thank you to our partners, the fire department and the planning department, who also participated. We brought in more than 50 over-the-counter with plans applications, and we issued 25 no plans permits. And a huge thank you to our staff for giving up a Saturday for that event. I want to talk a little bit about how we're increasing the number of permits we're issuing. We know that our customers have been, things are taking longer here than they did in the past, and so we have implemented a number of initiatives to increase the number of permits we're issuing and to help better serve our customers. So we've hired more administrative staff and engineers who do plan review. And that's focused on staff who can issue permits and review plans so that we have more people working on the plans that we're taking in. We've also implemented some technology, workflow, and process improvements. Some of those are still in process, and some of those have already happened. But we know that, especially with the electronic plan review system, that there wasn't the level of transparency that we wanted for our customers, and so we're working on improving that. We're also automating more no review permits. I talked about the re-roofing permits that we brought online last week. We're also looking at other no review permits that we can automate. So it makes it easier for people to get the permits they need. We have offered overtime to our staff so that we can, again, process more permits, get more permits out the door to all of our customers. And we formed partnerships with other departments to process specific types of permits and help move those along and streamline that process. Fire department has taken on handling the intake and issuance of the permits that require only fire department review. And our partners at the planning department have taken on the accessory dwelling unit permits, and they're in the process of training so that they can do the intake and issuance of those permits. The re-roofing permits launched on Monday last week, and so that is something where a roofing contractor or re-roofing contractor will sign up for a DBI contractor account and be able to, once they have an account, be able to just go online and get the permit they need. They won't have to come to the building. And that is something that's really helping, I think, move some of those no review permits. So over the counter with plans appointments, I think probably during the discussion we'll hear from folks who have been frustrated with the delays in getting appointments to come in and drop off your over the counter with plans permit applications. We are actively working to improve that system. We know that there are long wait times and how hard that is for our customers. So one of the things we're doing, we're adding capacity starting next week. We're going to have more appointments available, and those appointments are going to be allocated through a waitlist system. So rather than just automatically move people up in line, I know that might cause some chaos for some folks or maybe you're out of town or you're not ready. We are setting up this waitlist system so that if people want to come in sooner, you have the opportunity to come in sooner and take some of those appointments that we're adding, as well as we're keeping all of the appointments that people have currently made in the system. But the second phase of that is going through that list and making sure that all of those appointments are validated and that there aren't appointments that people don't need or appointments that are just placeholders. We are actively managing that list because we really recognize that people need to, they can't wait months to come in here for their over-the-counter with plans permits. We need to move people up in line and get people in here sooner. the next steps, our focus is going to be on improving that over-the-counter appointment system, decreasing the wait times, and adding the appointments. Liz from planning will talk about our new ADU permit process. We're continuing to work on our technology improvements, and another thing that we're going to be focused on this month is reviewing how we're taking in the in-house review projects and improving that system and the transparency in that. And with that, I will open it up for questions, comments, and suggestions. Would like to start with what suggested changes any of you would have for our in-person services. Do you have a suggestion for how we can manage the over-the-counter permit process better, or other types of permits?
If you have a comment or a suggestion, to raise your hand, you can press *3 on your phone, or you press the little hand icon on this in the menu on the right. Oh, we have one question from David Penn. Mr. Penn, you're unmuted.
Yes, I was wondering on the OTC process with plans, if it's at all possible for the plan checker to email the applicant the comments upon review rather than waiting for the applicant to get the comments issued after all stations have reviewed. Various plan check stations such as PUC, not necessarily DBI, but PUC or SFFD may be experiencing backlogs at any given point. Excuse me. And it can be several weeks between the initial review by DBI, say, and the final review by PUC or SFFD. And during those weeks, the applicant could be preparing the responses from the comments from the previous station. This is one of the great efficiencies of OTC pre-COVID, and it would be great if we could somehow resurrect that for this period.
Christine,
okay, that's a great
that's
suggestion. We will take that back to our plan checker folks. Dan, Larry, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, Dan Lowry. Good afternoon. Yeah, my plan checkers are a little concerned about that because there may be other issues from other departments that would require revision, and they thought it'd be and time consuming. They're writing the comments out, and it may change through the course of reviewing through other stations. So what we were doing, we were consolidating all the comments before we issued the permit, back to the plan checker there, or not, to the design professionals. So we could take that into consideration there, but it might slow the process down.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I totally get the logic there. It's just it really does assist the applicant in those instances where there is where comments can be responded to as they're issued. I understand there are complications on both sides, but there are some efficiencies there on the applicant side. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We will consider that, but as of this time, we're issuing the comments at the end of everybody's review, just so there's consistency with the comments.
Yeah, totally. Or some hybrid approach, like for example, after building, mechanical, and fire. At that point, maybe comments could be issued. Thank you for the consideration, Dan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, call-in user 650-755. You are unmuted.
Yes. Hi. My name's Kathy Lago-Marcino, and I'm the president of the Building Safety Alliance. Our mission is to advocate through education and political activity that authorities having jurisdiction employ qualified tradesmen for specialized electrical inspection of all new and modified electrical installations and maintain the current SFDBI district electrical inspection system. We believe that the qualified inspector protect the public from hazards of unsafe electrical installations. We know your mission is to address the department backlog as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. So we have begun an outreach to industry-interested parties to form a coalition to support your efforts. And in the coming days and weeks, we'll be sending in our letter offering our ideas to pull all of us out of this backlog. It is our hope that we have the future opportunity to review our suggestions with you directly and look forward to a speedy resolution to the current situation. On a personal note, I'm the president of ASF Electric, and we've seen some of our permit submissions getting through the process faster until the payment. And we're unable to pay our no review permits without an invoice. So that seems to be the next hurdle. We can't pay with our credit card, and we've waited so far 25 days on permits that have gotten through your review process, but we just can't pay them to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. We'll look into how we can streamline and improve the payment process. Thanks for flagging that.
Alex Morin, you are unmuted.
Hello. I am curious as to whether or not it sounds like there's overtime that's being allowed now for the plan checkers, and I know that with the fire department you're able to pay for OT plan review for OTC projects. Now, is that something that is possible for the building plan checkers and the MEP plan checkers as well?
Dan Lowry, good afternoon. As of now, we're using overtime with plan reviews with all staff just to go through the backlog that we have and the permits that we have in front of us for the OTC with plans. So that's what we're using our overtime at this time for.
Okay. So the applicant couldn't pay for a specific overtime review on a specific project?
Not at this time. Fire is different than DBI there. And we're using overtime with plan check staff right now just to get through the backlog.
Understood. Second follow-up question, to sort of add on to the first question that was presented about, or suggestion about receiving comments earlier. What I'm finding is that in many cases, when the building department or the building plan checker issues comments, and then the plans get to the fire department, there is a substantial wait to get the fire department comments. And in most cases, the comment is address building comments, and then we'll review. So it seems that that's a bit of a waste of time if the fire department is not going to conduct the review until the building comments have been addressed.
Okay, Dan Lowry, we'll take that into consideration there. We're looking at that there, but we know there is a delay with some of the fire permits there, but they are staffing up their group and getting behind their backlog too. But we'll look at that consideration.
So
thank you.
This is Patrick here. Rich Brown, would you like to weigh in on that for what you know of your process?
Good evening, Rich Brown here, Assistant Fire Marshal here at the Permit Center. How's everybody doing? So, sir, yes, I heard your comment there, and I will look into that, but I really think that that would be one of the comments on top of others. I don't know if it's not our policy to stop reviewing and totally just direct, you to correct DBI's comments first, unless it's something totally egregious like, can you even build this structure, or can you even apply for a permit for this scope of work? But I will look into that.
Thank you. And final question is, do we have any idea as to when the building will reopen to the public?
So this is Patrick here. We are having discussions with our partnering review departments and agencies in regard to potentially reopening. We're putting together a health and safety plan. We've even gone as far as ordering the plexiglass shields and PPEs in anticipation of that. But a plan has not been finalized, and we need to get engagement from our partners so that people can have the interactive experience that we had at 1660. But and along with that, just remember that whatever the number of people it is that we can get in this building safely, we have to maintain all the safety protocols that apply to the COVID-19 situation with the social distancing and health screening and masking and all of that. But it's a conversation that's going on right now, and we will update as soon as we have some consensus.
Thank you.
Okay. If callers can keep it to one question, we've got quite a few people in the queue. So next caller is Jillian Allen. You are unmuted.
Thank you. And I do want to thank everybody from all the agencies that are attending, because you guys are going through here to improve these processes, and every one of these forums helps. I just have, it is related to getting comments back on the OTC before it goes to fire. I think that if you have a permit tech that's actually making those plans, is there a way that we could add our email to the intake and have them just snap a photo of and send that? And maybe it's not going to be 100%, but it's going to give us a lot more information than we have now. So that's just something to think about.
Dan Lowry, we'll look into your consideration there.
Serena Calhoun, this is you are unmuted.
Hi, everybody. I'm Serena. I'm an architect. We specialize in accessory dwelling units. You know, the electronic plan check process we are finding is pretty smooth, and it's going a lot faster now that there's a little bit of a groove. We're having a lot of difficulty getting access to the Bluebeam. We can see that there's comments on the tracker, and there seems to be like 5 different email addresses that just ping pong us around depending on where the project is in the process. And from the moment that it starts to be processed, the permit starts to be processed. Like, we submitted permits in May that are just now getting processed and just now getting fees, and then going into Bluebeam, and then we're not getting the Bluebeam invite. And it's so frustrating to send 5 or 10 emails and get bounced around and still not have access. We're also finding that there's a lot of permits that we filed all at the same time, and they just don't seem to be running sequentially in terms of processing. You know, we submitted a permit at like 825 Pine and 835 Pine on the same day, and 825 Pine is already in review, and we still don't have a permit fee for 835 Pine. So there's some confusion about how these are getting processed, how the order in which they're getting processed. That's pretty challenging. Yeah, so I'll try to keep it to one. I'm sure I'll be back for more comments. We're really anxious to start being able to resubmit permits again. Having this hiatus for months and seeing that, you know, the next available appointment for an OTC is in March is totally absurd, given that we've got 20% vacancy in residential units that need to be renovated and get back on the market. And we also have all these commercial tenants who, you know, vacant storefronts that we're not able to get TIs together on. So I really am hoping that this gets moving again really quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Henry,
yeah,
you are unmuted.
hi. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. What I'm finding is, you know, paying fees, somebody brought it up before, for permits that are ready to be issued. And it's taken a week to 2 weeks, if not more than that, to try to get those fees paid. And even after they've been paid, we don't get the drawings, the approved drawings, till I don't know how long it's going to take. I had one where I was really surprised. It was great. It was knocked out in a matter of like a day and over the weekend. So I appreciate everybody taking their, you know, to come into work overtime. So it's fabulous. But I would like to see these permits being issued. You know, once you pay it, it should be ready to be issued the next day. And it's not, because like I said, one of them did. And this other one, it seems like to be sitting there.
Thank you, Henry. Alida Zavala, you are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Alida. I have one question. Once the LTC permit is submitted, the permit tracking system is not being updated to reflect where the permit is moving next, or if any comments have been made by specific departments. How do I mean, my question is, how do I track the permit if there's any information available? What is DBI doing to improve the PTS comments for LTC permit applications? Thank you.
Dan, do you want to take that?
Dan, do you want to?
Hello,
Dan, we can hear you.
you can hear me? Okay, I have trouble. This computer knocks in and out on the voice. I don't know why. We've MIS looked at it a couple times. But yeah, good afternoon, Dan Lowry. After every review station on the over-the-counter Form 8 permits, the plan checker inputs it into the system there, and that's what they're instructed to do. And they also do that on the Form 8 permits upon review, and if it goes on hold or if it's approved there. So I would look into that, but we instruct our plan reviewers to do the input when they review it, because the Form 8 permits now for over the counter, we have to hand walk them from station to station. So it's really, really important that they do the input before they bring it to the next station.
Okay, Amanda Dunbar, you are unmuted.
Hi, yeah, my name is Amanda Dunbar. I work at an architecture office. My suggestion is that I'm wondering if San Francisco has ever considered hiring or outsourcing to third-party plan reviewers. I know that other jurisdictions do this, like in Marin County, and I'm wondering if this is a worth discussion to start something like that. Thank you.
I think that's a Patrick.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to Elizabeth Waddy's presentation from planning?
No, we have a couple more questions.
Oh, we do. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that.
Patrick, what was asked was whether we would consider outsourcing plan reviewers.
There's a lot of echo there, Christine. I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
The question was whether we would consider outsourcing plan reviewers.
Yeah, well, that question is it's a difficult one, because San Francisco is very different from a lot of jurisdictions insofar as we have all these agencies that these submittals move through for the review process, and there's a lot of complexity in regard to routing and requirements and ordinances that have to do with a lot of these permits. So, you know, we haven't considered it at this point, and I think it might be a future conversation, but not at this time.
Dan Lowry, we also are adding more engineers for the review. You know, there is a delay in the backlog there, and we are hiring, in the process of hiring 3 more engineers to help expedite the plan review. Part of the problem too now, you got to consider in this COVID there, is that some of the plan reviewers are working remote and some of them are on leave. So we do have a few plan checkers that are on leave. So that is delaying the process a little bit, but we're doing everything we can to move the permits forward.
And I think another thought that we should be considering is that if we engage the services of an outside plan check agency, it probably would take us several months to bring them up to speed in regards to our processes. So we'd probably double our backload by simply having to spend the time training whoever we would bring in on how it is we conduct our business here. So that's also a consideration.
John, can you take the next caller?
Oh, I was unmuted. Sorry, I was muted. Pierce Gillespie, you're unmuted.
Hi, yeah. I was curious about the new EPR system for ADUs. I was wondering if the new system will DBI process these submissions equitably by taking in the order of email submissions into consideration?
So I think Elizabeth Waddy will be speaking to the process for ADUs in just a little while. So she'll probably give you that information.
All right, thank you.
Peter Zapponi, you are unmuted.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Peter. I'm an architect, and a suggestion. I have a project to try and expedite a review. Project's under construction. We need a design revision for a structural problem. There's like unreinforced masonry stairs about to collapse. The inspector says we need to submit for a new permit, which put us in line with everyone else. If there's a way for field inspectors to be able to review the proposed change for projects that are well under construction, the meeting I was scheduled for is way after the completion date of the project. If there's a way for inspectors to flag something for an expedited review to get plan revisions during construction approved so that the projects can be completed.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question. That's something that we can definitely streamline and fast track, because when you've already started the construction and some revision is necessary for some change. So I understand that, and our inspectors understand that. And if you bring that to anyone here, and make sure you copy me on that email too, I'd be happy to hear about it and help out with it. We can definitely get that one moved up in the line for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, it just seems like it's becoming part of the backlog where that's having to submit and get in line with everybody else.
We don't want to stop jobs because they're waiting for a revision. And in a lot of cases, I know you know this, but the inspectors go out there and they'll make a note on the job card pending approved revision, and they'll note what they saw when they were there, and before the final inspection, they'll expect to see that revision in place. So, but we won't delay the completion of the work and the final sign off either. So if anybody comes to us with a situation like that, we will facilitate moving people up in line so they can get that permit and finish out their work.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, so and just so inspectors can feel like they're working with us rather than just saying we need to get plans. I think it just needs to be a partnership trying to resolve situations that are problematic. And so if that word gets out to inspectors that, to try and help move it along, that would be great.
Yeah, I think I know the chief building inspector and the seniors understand that very well. But if there's, maybe a new inspector or something that doesn't fully understand that, we need to work with folks a little bit more, just let us know, and we'll be happy to help out with putting everyone on the same page and bringing that inspector if there's somebody that needs to be updated on the processes.
All right. Great. Thank you. I'll keep you posted.
Yep.
Okay, Lacey Dirks.
Hi, I just have a quick question in regards to appointments that are already on books, if they're potentially canceled or if they are potentially somebody that doesn't show up. One of the questions that my firm had in regards to the long wait times is, how is that affecting the appointments that are currently on the books? I understand that moving those appointments up could be very frustrating and confusing, but at the same time, you might have a person that is set to review a set, and the appointment doesn't show up, and then they're just sitting there without a plan to review. How are you guys assessing those cancellations or last minute no-shows appointments?
Hi, so we are actively, when I say that we are actively managing the appointment list, one of the things that we're doing is calling through the folks who have appointments and confirming that they're coming in and confirming that they have a valid project. Because because I know things are dynamic and sometimes things change and people maybe booked an appointment and then they don't need it. And so if we're able to cancel appointments, those will be added to the ones that we're moving people off the wait list for. So we're adding appointments in addition to the 24 appointments we already offer a day, plus any appointments that we cancel because people don't need them anymore or something changed. We will also move people from the wait list into those appointments as well.
Okay. Gregory is off. Sorry, I'm just going through the list here. Caller public. You are unmuted.
Hi, my name's Seth. I work at an architect and contractor company. We do a lot of small renovation projects for homes. A lot of the stuff we do can be done without plans, but sometimes we get just right on the cusp where we need plans. Maybe we're demoing out a single wall or closet, combining a bathroom. And I have a project, that are 2 weeks construction, but they're 4 or 5 months out for permits. I was wondering if you guys would be open to looking into maybe letting some of these smaller scope projects that require plans come through. I have so many projects that are maybe 2 weeks construction and we're just out till February and March. And my fear is I'm watching the residential market where people are sitting at home, they're spending more time than they'd usually spend at home. They want to do upgrades and they're at a point where they can't do anything to their home because of the city restrictions. And I fear that people are going to start doing work without approval. And it kind of undermines the whole permitting process. So I'm just wondering if there's anything that you guys would be willing to do to help out the small guy to kind of push some of these smaller projects through.
Yeah, thanks for that question. This is Patrick here. We actually have had that discussion here, and we're actively thinking about ways that we can look at what's on that the queue and what's in the queue and just determine where the low-hanging fruit is. And I mean, I think what you're describing, the simple maybe moving a wall or something with regard to combining a kitchen and a living room, or things such as that are just simple, small projects. We're thinking about maybe having somebody just wade through the appointments and see what meets the criteria for this, what I refer to as low-hanging fruit that can be as simple over-the-counter, quick approval and get it on its way. So we're having that conversation, yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we are way over time for this particular segment, so there are a few more people in the queue. If you don't mind, you can. We'd ask that you ask your questions or submit your comments at the end of this when we have a sort of roundtable discussion. I've written your names down, so I'll go to you first on the list. So next up, we have permitting department announcements. And Elizabeth Waddy with SF planning announcements and discussions.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Patrick, for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Waddy, Acting Director of Current Planning with the San Francisco Planning Department. I just wanted to join everyone today and reiterate some of the updates that we announced at last Friday's customer call. But in short, we're partnering with our colleagues over at the Department of Building Inspection to help with the permitting challenges that we're all experiencing due to COVID. We have worked together to identify accessory dwelling units as the universe of permit type to assist with the permit, basically the clerical functions associated with ADUs that currently DBI would do. So that's the issuance or the intake, I'm sorry, which effectively means, you all submit the project, it gets entered into our various back of house databases. And what we are planning on doing is using this as sort of a relaunch of the fully electronic plan review system. The electronic plan review system the website submittal process occurred over the summer. There were a lot of things that went wrong, but there were also a lot of really productive lessons learned. And so what we're hoping to do is take those lessons learned, take what worked well, adapt around what didn't work well, and relaunch with this sort of more contained universe of project type, and have this be hopefully a relaunch of something that can expand more broadly into other project types in the future. So what does this mean for customers? So starting next Monday is when the official baton will be handed off between DBI and planning. What we are intending to do is starting next week, we will first and foremost be reaching out to the folks who submitted emails over the course of the last since October 7th or August 17th, when we turned off electronic plan review. As of right now, we know there's a little over 100 inquiries for ADUs. And what we're going to be doing is serving those customers first. But in short, and I'll be honest, we are still actively working through some technology integrations as well as some training. The website. This is the website that was used when we did electronic plan review earlier in the year, and it's the website that we're still using for 100% affordable housing projects and development agreement projects, and addenda and revisions to previously submitted electronic projects. So the system and the structure should not feel terribly different for folks who engaged with us through that back over the summer. What we are doing that's different, and I think is important for you guys to know, again, hearing a lot of the feedback from customers over time, we're hoping to adapt to it. A couple key things. First up, we are planning on leveraging the planning department's backend system, which more easily integrates with the website to give customers an instant reference number, if you will. So it's not a building permit number, but for those of you who have used the planning or engaged with the planning department before, you know that we often create what we call a project number for anything that is a building permit that comes over to planning. So there's a PRJ acronym at the end of the record number. That will be auto-generated at submittal, and within one business day, it basically every night the system does. So basically the next morning after you submit, you should see that your application has been filed through our property information map. And what we're hoping that does is, by no means is that completing your intake, but what we're hoping that will do for customers is give them that assurance that this didn't go into some black hole, or they forgot to hit submit, or they didn't, they clicked once instead of twice and it all didn't work. We're hoping to give that confidence that yes, you submitted it, it went into our system, and somebody will be working on it. So that's step one that we think is a lesson learned over the course of the previous attempt. The second thing that we're going to be doing is, just because our department, again, we're not structured in the same way that DBI is, and we've got more limited staff, but we are having basically one person complete every single intake. Really closely. Basically, intake submitted on X date is what we're currently processing, and we hope to be able to publicize that, if at a bare minimum once a week with an update to customers, but hopefully in a little bit more close to real time. But the idea is, if you submit an ADU on November 5th, for example, we may at some point in time on our website filed on November 3rd, and you'll kind of know where you stand relative to the current batch that we're processing. So that's the second takeaway, is setting some expectations around what we're currently processing, and then you as a customer can make some deductions as to how far away you are from being helped. What I will say is that we are expecting, because there's a lot of pent-up, this will also take time for us to complete this pent-up demand of ADUs. And similarly, once we do get these through the intake process, our plan reviewers and DBI's plan reviewers and Fire's plan reviewers, they are going to be faced with a huge uptick in volume. So what I would just ask in advance is for your patience on that part. That they are currently working their tails off trying to get through this, but there is going to be a huge increase in volume that they're going to be faced with over the coming weeks. We're certainly excited about it for planning. We're really ADUs are something we're really passionate about, and we want to continue to make sure that ADUs get through. Things won't go perfectly smooth, and we do hope that customers will continue to reach out to us if they are starting to identify any pinch points moving forward. I think one last important update for everyone to know, just in terms of expectation setting, is the Department of Building Inspection is still handling intakes for ADUs that were summer. So pretty much anything that was submitted before August 17th, DBI is taking full, sort of retaining full control over both the intake and the issuance. But anything new that basically has been submitted through an email inquiry or request, we will take those over. So we wanted to draw a really clear line in the sand for customers of which agency has purview over which process. I think that wraps up my announcement, and I am happy to answer questions, John, if you want to open that up. Or suggestions, questions or questions.
We have 3. We'll start with Mark Davis. You are unmuted.
Hi, thanks. And I apologize. I think I raised my hand. I had more of a general question and not something specific to Liz Waddy or ADU. So could I maybe re-raise my hand toward the end of the session?
Certainly.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
No worries. Henry, you're up.
Okay, thanks, John. Hi, Liz. I'm just wondering, what's the time now to get a variance, to apply for a variance? We're looking at if I was to submit something like in the next couple of weeks. Do you have any ideas of this, please?
There shouldn't be much of a delay on the intake process for variances. You know, our planner technicians who usually do variance intakes, you know, there might be roughly a week turnaround time, something along those lines, but there shouldn't be a delay in getting it in. You know, variances are a little more unique depending on the specifics of the project. Typically, we like to run the 311 notice. Most variances require Section 311 notifications. If that's required, we do need a building permit to come in order to run variance. But you can certainly get your variance in, get it assigned to a planner, and work through those details with the planner. Our backlogs are a bit better in terms of actual review time from our planners once you're done with our intake with our planner techs. I would budget roughly a month or so for getting a planner assigned and able to start reviewing your project. But I would, again, encourage you to submit for a building permit so that we can get that 311 notification going concurrently if possible.
Amanda Dunbar, you are unmuted.
Hi, yeah, I have a question for Liz. The reference number that you mentioned earlier, is that specifically only for ADU submittals, or is that for any intake kind of permit?
That's a great question. No, so we'll call it the PRJ number. Those are the last 3 acronyms. That applies to any building, any project that the planning department reviews will always have a PRJ number. When you only have a building permit, that will be the only reference number. Whereas with other sort of larger entitlements, like if you have a conditional use or a variance.
Okay.
But so all ADUs pre-COVID and currently during COVID will always have that PRJ number. So it's a number that has always applied to ADUs once you get into the planning department system. What we're doing that's just a little bit different is we're leveraging a technology integration when you hit submit on the website that will automatically create that number instead of our clerical staff doing it through sort of a referral from DBI, which has currently been the process.
Okay.
And that serves 2 real purposes. One, it certainly is an efficiency on our end so that our staff can pivot over and do some of the other more manual data entry. But really more importantly, what that does is for the customer, it lets you know that your application has been received by the city and we're actively. Okay.
Thank you. Michael Harris. Michael Harris, you're unmuted. Am I unmuted? Yes. Okay, we'll try the next one. Jillian Allen.
Thank you. Hi, Liz. During place, would it be possible for us to have an email resource where we could ask pick questions? For instance, if you have a B building and you're not sure if something is going to have to be an intake versus an over-the-counter review, where we could PDF some schematic plans or a plan set over for a quick look at it like we used to do in person.
Hi, Jillian. Sorry, my mouse wasn't working there. Absolutely. So we, just like we did actually pre-COVID, we have an email address for our Public Information Center. The email address is PIC, that's P as in Paul, I, C as in Charlie, at sfgov.org. That email address is still being manned, for lack of a better word, by our staff. And we also have a preservation planner on duty every day. Through email. So we certainly would have staff to do it. The only ask that I would have is the intent is still for those inquiries to be relatively quick reviews by our staff. These are not intended to replace our project reviews. The best sort of rule of thumb is these should be able to be reviewed and answered by our staff in about 15 minutes. If it's going to require much more than a 15-minute look by our staff, we would really encourage you to file a project review. You can find that application on our website, but that is intended to be about an hour of staff time, whereas the PIC email should be about questions that are about a 15-minute workload.
All right. Serena Calhoun.
Hey, Liz. So I have a quick question for you and then a quick question for whoever at DBI is handling the backlog of ADUs. Liz, for you, I just wanted to clarify, it sounds like starting next week, we'll be able to upload new ADU projects through the general SFGov online permitting portal. Is that correct? Or you mentioned also that there was some kind of like email situation. Should we be emailing somebody about it? Yeah, just clarify that.
Question for clarification. So up through this week, basically the only mechanism to move forward with an ADU is to email DBI customer service at sfgov.org. And so we have identified that folks to date have submitted a little over 100 inquiries through that DBI customer service email that are related to ADUs. So that's part one. What we are doing to deal with that is when we go live next week, we are going to be validating all of the submittals against that list first for equity and handle those people's applications in the order that they were submitted on email to the best of our ability. So everyone can file new applications starting next week, starting next month, probably midweek or so. So, you know, it's going to still be a little bit of a ramp up period next week, but we are, as of right now, planning on going live on Monday. So I would say if at this point you have not yet submitted anything, so no email through DBI yet, that I would suggest holding off until Monday, and then you can file your ADU application online starting. Again, we're shooting for Monday, but we are frantically finishing out some technology integration. So if it's not Monday, it'll be the early part of next week for sure.
Michael Harris, we're going to try you one more time. You're unmuted. Going once, going twice. I think that's it. We will go on to Rich Brown.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? I will zip through this very quickly because I'm sure you have some questions at the end. So anyway, thanks for participating, Patrick, and thanks for inviting me. A lot of changes in the last 3 months since we moved to the new building. There's been some challenges, some adapting, some improvising, and basically overcoming some major hurdles. As a plan review routing station, we are seeing an uptick in plans that have been submitted through DBI. been a challenge to go through them. And overall, we're doing the best we can. But since September 28th, we have implemented and started our own drop-in service for fire-only permits on a first-come, first-served basis. We got rid of the Eventbrite business so we can help the customers a little bit better this way. So with that, we have about 25 people that work in our permit center office. Not only are they plan reviewers, we have other duties as well. So there's other pre-application meetings that we have to attend. We have water flow information duties that we have to address, and we have our operational permit services that are housed at the permit center as well. While we navigate through these unprecedented times, we want to focus on fire onlys, obviously, as a life safety systems coming through the DBI process that you can see on your screen that we are concentrating on. Our bread and butter plans are sprinkler systems and fire alarm, but you have those other scopes of work that we can plan review as well in a timely manner. We can also expedite any emergency repairs to any life safety system. I want you to be aware of that, and they can contact me so we can get you through the system quickly. We are hoping to roll out and be part of electronic plan review in the near future as well. So look forward to that. We would like to be the leaders in that, so we found Bluebeam to be a very, very good tool for us. So with that, I think that's quickly what I just went over. We can move on for any questions.
We have one question. Henry?
Well, that's not a question, Rich. I just want to tell you, I love that you guys are doing with fire. It is so cool. We don't have to have any appointments or anything come in, and the folks you have, they provide a great service. Plan checking is another story, but on the whole, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Henry.
And Christina Nguyen?
Yes, hi. Thank you for all you really appreciate you guys getting things faster. I just have a question on how we can, or where can we go to track our permits, especially for fire. I don't know if there's a phone number we can call if we have any questions on where it is or the status of it, because like some permits are like turned in like beginning of the month and they're still not on the DBI tracking site.
So I'll take that, John. Yes, Christine. So there is a challenge in the volume of plans that have been dropped off in the last 4 or 5 weeks. So those plans, we get approximately 20 a day. So we're having a hard time with our staff keeping up in entering them into the PTS system, but we are doing that. And you just have to kind of be patient and keep an eye on it. We're about 2 weeks behind in just getting or assigning a building application number to those fire-only plans. So for any questions, I'm going to give you a phone number to our staff. Staff can get back to you. Phone number is 628-652-3472. 628-652-3472.
That is everyone's question. That's all the questions. So we will move on to Public Works with Mari Hunter and Kelly Albers to discuss the Shared Spaces program.
Hi, everyone. I'm not sure if Gregory wanted to give an introduction. but if not, I can go ahead and speak on the permitting process for the Shared Spaces program. Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Albers, and I work for the Bureau of Street Use and Mapping at Public Works, mainly on commercial permits such as cafe tables and chairs and display merchandise. Next slide, please. Given the circumstances, we developed the Shared Spaces program with the intention of making the permitting process as simple and as smooth as possible for businesses. Normally, cafe tables and chairs and display merchandise permits require the submittal of a site plan for review, as well as a 10-day public notification period. The length of the permitting process varies, ranging anywhere from 2 months up to 2 years in some cases. Now, with the Shared Spaces program, businesses that would like to utilize the sidewalk or parking lane for outdoor seating, retail use, or curbside pickup may submit an application online for a free and expedited temporary permit. The application form is very simple, just requesting for information regarding the business as well as submittal of additional documentation. For instance, if a business would like to occupy a neighboring frontage, they would need to provide a letter with written permission from the property owner or tenant allowing them to do so. Applicants must also self-certify that they comply with all of the program's requirements and design guidelines. Next slide, please. Applications received are essentially split into 3 categories. We have sidewalk only, parking lane only, and dual applications for both sidewalk and parking lane. Those that involve occupancy of the sidewalk are reviewed by Public Works for compliance with ADA requirements. Our main concern is to ensure that the minimum 6-foot wide clearance can be established and maintained for the pedestrian path of travel. We also check for adequate clearances from fire safety structures, curb ramps, and other surface obstructions. SFMTA reviews applications that involve occupancy of the parking lane. Mari Hunter from SFMTA is on the call, so if anyone has questions regarding these applications, you may ask her at the end of her presentation. Once staff has verified that all requirements can be met for a certain location, the permit is then approved. Currently, the processing of an application can be completed within 1 week of submittal. Next slide. Regarding the installation of platforms, I'm sure many of you have seen these popping up throughout the city. The original intent of the program was to have all elements be temporary and removable at the close of business each day. That is still our intent. We do discourage businesses from installing any permanent fixtures in the public right-of-way. However, many businesses have gone ahead and installed platforms or other structures. So we have developed design guidelines to ensure the safety and accessibility of these shared spaces for emergency responders, specifically the San Francisco Fire Department. Our inspection and community emergency response teams are also actively involved in the permitting process and conduct site visits daily in order to address complaints and concerns made by members of the public. Last slide. As for the future of the Shared Spaces program, we have recently announced that the program has been extended until the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2021. All permits issued under the program were originally set to expire on December 31st, 2020, but we are currently in the process of renewing these permits. Along with the extension of the program, we will be granting temporary waivers for any fees associated with our annual commercial permits. These include cafe tables and chairs, display merchandise, and parklet permits. And to conclude this presentation, I just wanted to mention that we have received over 2,267 shared spaces permit applications and have processed over 1,920 of them. Mari, Greg, and I are now available if anyone has any questions, comments, or suggestions. Thank you.
Henry is not raising his hand anymore. So, there he is again. Henry, do you have a question?
No, I just want to say I'm involved with small business and we love these shared spaces. They are just fabulous. A lot of the small business folks would not be around if it wasn't for them. They're really a great thing to have for the community and for small business. So DPW, thank you for all the hard work on getting them going and getting us. It's great to hear there's still 1,000 to go. Some of them aren't so pretty, but like the guys at Chestnut Street, my God, they're gorgeous out there, you know. So once again, fabulous for small business. Thanks a lot for what you guys are doing for us, folks. Thank you.
And Greg, I made you a panelist if you want to say anything.
First of all, I just want to thank our partners at DBI for inviting us to this forum. We love any opportunity to build bridges. The more bridges we're able to build, the farther we all go together. So thank you for sharing some of your time with us. Kelly and Mari have been working so hard. Mari's with MTA, Kelly's on the Public Works team. To give you some sense of scale and context, prior to COVID, we had about 400 to 500 cafe table and chairs permits, and we have exceeded 1,900 total approved applications within this program. So it gives you some sense as to how large the scope of operation is. We're available to take questions or comments offline as well. If anyone needs to get a hold of us, reach out to John. John, feel free to share my contact info as you see fit.
Certainly.
Yeah, just thank you, Kelly, for creating this presentation. Thank you, Mari, for joining us. And yeah, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, bring them on now. If they don't come into mind until later, feel free to reach out to us accordingly. And thank you for partnering with us.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, my name is John Murray. I'm the DBI Legislative Manager. Just a quick update on recently enacted legislation and some pending legislation. The mandatory soft story Tier 4 deadline extension was passed. It extended the date for the completion of work for seismic retrofitting of Tier 4 wood frame buildings to September 15th, 2021. Tier 4 buildings are those with commercial ground floor and or in mapped liquefaction zones. So if you are the owner of such a building, you have until 2021 to complete your work. You still should have had your, you should have gotten a permit issued by now. So if you haven't done so, we would encourage you to go ahead and do that. And if you are the owner of a Tier 3 or Tier 2 building and you haven't completed work or had your or obtained a permit, we would suggest you reach out to us and we can work that out. The unit legalization fee waiver, which extended the DBI and planning fee waivers for unit legalization. It expired on January 1st of this year. It was extended by another 5 years. The goal of this is really just to encourage folks to bring their units out of the shadows, so to speak, so we can get them up to current code and make sure they are safe and habitable for their residents. The Accessible Business Entrance Program deadline extension, it was passed it was passed actually in 2019. It extended the deadline to September 1st, 2020 to submit your compliance checklist. To file for an application, you have until December 1st of 2020. And to obtain the required building permits, you have until September 1st, 2021. We recognize that with the current issues that we've been discussing in this meeting, you know, we're willing to work with you if you are running up against that deadline and there is some issues. So we would encourage you to reach out to our technical services division. Pending legislation, amending the building code to require that all new building construction utilize only electric power. That is currently working its way through the board. It was just moved out of the land use committee on Monday. It will be heard by the board next week. So that is a pretty big one. And you know, pretty self-explanatory. It's for new construction only, and you would not be able to. You would also not be able to convert any existing only all-electric buildings to gas. The other big item is the Emergency Shelter in Peace Ordinance by Supervisor Peskin, which requires building owners to provide replacement water and or power in the event of utility shutoffs for construction work. This is for tenants in multi-unit buildings. So if you're doing work that requires a utility shutoff of over a certain threshold, you have to provide bottled water or a portable generator or a battery pack so that they can continue to essentially work from home. It also does require installation of temporary sound insulation for in the event of loud sustained noise from construction in a multi-unit building. It expires at the end of this month, but Supervisor Peskin did introduce legislation extending the ordinance for another 60 days. So that will put it into December. Supervisor Safai recently introduced a construction and demolition debris recovery ordinance. It doesn't actually, it's not necessarily DBI centric, but it does require transporters of construction and demolition debris to obtain a permit from the Department of Environment for their vehicles and/or debris boxes when they are hauling construction debris, and it requires that the debris processing facilities also register with the Department of Environment. The only other thing that it does is increases the diversion, the waste diversion goal for full demolition projects from 65% to 75%. So you have to reuse, recover, recycle, et cetera, 75% of the debris generated when you do a full demolition. And then finally, you have the administrative code change for the floodplain management and flood insurance requirements. This has to do with the FEMA flood maps, which have recently been finalized for San Francisco. If you are doing new construction or a substantial alteration in the area designated as a FEMA flood zone, you are required to adhere to a sort of stricter set of building code requirements for flood protection. It's not a lot of it's not a lot. There are not a lot of parcels involved here. DBI would have jurisdiction over about 66 existing buildings and something like 140 parcels, mostly concentrated in the southeast section of the city that would be in this area. But that will be going into effect in February of next year, and we are working out the implementation there. So please stay tuned. I think at the next one of these, we'll have more to discuss on that. And with that, I am happy to take any questions. We can actually go ahead and open that up to any questions or suggestions for future topics for everything. So I will start with Cyrus.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for your update there. This is Cyrus Senandaji with Presidio Bay. I was actually here to comment and ask questions on a few other matters pertaining to DBI and planning, but did catch wind of your update regarding the all-electric ordinance that's pending legislation. And we've had a series of conversations with various supervisors in the last few months around this very topic, and have been told that there's been certain working groups that are technically part of the industry who've provided feedback with respect to the impact this would have on the actual feasibility and cost of development. And so to that end, wanted to ask you, if you can share more information about the more detailed sessions that are still, as I understand it, ongoing. It certainly hasn't been distributed widely, and part of my concern that I'm raising now, as well, is that a lot of these discussions seem to happen in a rather small bubble, and expanding the purview of those actually involved in the industry who can share their feedback, who have more of an accurate sense of the pulse of the market, if you will, to give you feedback on the impact of these decisions, I think is really important. There are just the fact that what I've heard anyway in feedback with respect to the all-electric discussion, that, for example, it's much cheaper, quote unquote, to go all electric, whether it applies to residential or commercial buildings, or the fact that, for example, consideration hasn't been given to small businesses, restaurants specifically, and the challenges and significant increased costs that this would have with being forced to go all electric, or the impact on specialty uses like life science or lab buildings. Those are all things that I think are very important to discuss. And to date, at least amongst our colleagues and other similar firms in the Bay Area, we haven't been sort of involved with or brought into those discussions. And I would like the information about sort of those working groups, and would love to have a more in-depth discussion around it.
Certainly, and that outreach was performed largely by the Department of the Environment. I'm happy to follow up with that. Can I give you my email address, and maybe we can take that discussion offline?
Absolutely.
I can get you some more information.
No, I appreciate that.
John, John, Patrick, Patrick, .Murray, Murray, at sfgov.org.
Perfect. I just sent you an email with my contact. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome. David Penn.
Yes, hey, thank you, John. I had a question somewhat relevant to you, but really directed towards Patrick. I believe I've had this issue cleared up with Rich, and just all departments who may be listening, regarding the requirement for wet signatures and stamps on plans. After the initial shelter-in-place order during DBI/Permit Center's first QA session, it was announced that wet signatures on plans would no longer be required. I've since gotten verified that was vetted with the city attorney, and electronic signatures are valid on documents per California Civic Code 1633.7. But I'm still getting questions from various administrative staff amongst various departments. It just doesn't seem like that message has been communicated across all departments and administrative staff. And so my ask, really, I have no question. My ask really is just that be communicated, because we continue to get that, and that continues to hold up things in this otherwise very difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you,
John,
Dave.
if I could,
Understanding is fine, and we can communicate with our partnering departments and agencies. And sorry, Liz, I think you had something to say there too. Pardon me.
Sure. I was just going to add onto the record, there is one document that the planning department works with called Costa Hawkins agreements. These are regulatory agreements that are often required for accessory dwelling unit projects, among other types of documents. But anytime that there is the need for a notary, we are required to do wet signatures. The notary process under the state of California is still requiring wet signatures on the notarized. So that is the only thing that the planning department will require a wet signature for, but no other documents, planning applications, those sorts of things, those can all be processed through electronic signatures.
Good to know. Thank you.
Great, I was muted. Mark Davis.
Hi, thanks. Thanks again for taking my question and for hosting these events. This is very project specific. For the, I don't know, maybe not the first time, but I've got a project, a single family residential remodel, nothing expanding beyond the envelope. We're just finishing up schematic design, and my client is pumping the brakes on the project because of the fear of it taking, quite a lengthy permit review and approval process. They might just abandon the project altogether and move out of the city. But they're looking to me for any input on what they might anticipate being a reasonable review process going through planning and DBI. And to the panel, would you guys have any suggestions on my response to my client for, the scope of work? It's a single family RH1D zoned, not expanding beyond the envelope. We are replacing the foundation. We're going to redo the kitchen. We're going to capture some square footage behind the garage underneath the footprint as livable space. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Dan Lowry, DBI. Good afternoon. Yeah, for the scope of that job there, that almost looks like it's a over-the-counter review, depending on how much structural there is. We try to say for evaluation around $150,000, for single-family residential. We try to do that an over-the-counter review. So we could get pre-screened on that, and we'll let you know if it has to be intaked or if it could be eligible for the over-the-counter review.
I think the valuation is going to be more than that because they are going to elect to replace, just because they're going to replace the foundation. That alone is going to be over 150K. And then we're going to, add on redoing the kitchen and capturing some creating livable space on the lower level to add another bedroom, bathroom for their growing family. So I don't know if it seems to check a lot of the boxes over the counter, but even then, I don't know what is a reasonable thing for me to tell them, just to anticipate, is it, 4 to 6 months, 6 to 8. And I know it's hard for everybody to tell because you guys, the workload is phenomenal for you guys right now. But as an architect, I'm getting asked this question, and it's really determining whether or not people move forward with a project.
This is Liz Waddy from planning. What I can just note on the planning department side is that does sound like that should be an over-the-counter review for planning. I would say the few items where it could throw a wrench into things for you is needed, and whether you're in any, if you need to dig down quite a bit or do a fair amount of excavation, there may be some additional environmental review that's needed on our end. But the fail safe is if you're doing less than 2 feet of additional excavation, that helps keep it in sort of an easier process. Second item, if your renovation includes any exterior alterations that are visible from the street, that still should be able to be done over the counter, but that we will scrutinize those changes more closely. So we would encourage you to make sure, they're architecturally compatible with the existing home, that sort of thing, to help the ease of process, which is directly related to whether or not it's considered a historic. So most of the buildings in the RH1D are either, most of them are still sort of undetermined, age eligible, but not identified as either historic or not historic. If you're just doing in-kind replacements in terms of new windows, new siding, paint, that sort of thing, you should be in the clear regardless and still be over the counter. But if you were doing significant alterations and completely redesigning the front facade, that could require some additional review on our end. So I'd say if you take the easier end of those 3 things that I identified, that should easily stay in the over-the-counter realm. I think then the bigger question back to DBI is just an estimate of when you think you'll be able to get an over-the-counter permit, assuming they're able to complete their review OTC.
Liz, I'm sorry, let me follow up to what you said. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Assuming that we are taking the path of less resistance, is it reasonable to expect, a couple months before it's even assigned to a planner, or what do you think?
Sure. So if this is over the counter, it's like days. Once you're through the intake process, the way it's working during COVID, at least, is instead of it being a 15-minute transaction or a 30-minute transaction, we are taking about 3 days or so, I would say, on average for the planning portion of quote unquote OTC. But we have 5 staff, between 4 and 5 staff, who are in the permit center every day doing these over-the-counter reviews. And that's over the last month or so, that's been about our average clip at turning things around in about that amount of time. I think the most important thing, honestly, is to make sure you have a complete plan set to minimize the number of comments that we would have. Sure. Certainly, if we have comments, materials aren't called out or amount of excavation is not called out, we'll have to put it on hold and request that information before we can finish our over-the-counter review. So kind of like help us help you. The more you give us up front in terms of those details, the easier we can complete our review in that initial 3-day or so time frame.
Perfect. Would you recommend that, and I'm sorry for taking up so much time, should we pursue like as a site permit first without structural
I would ask
to get
for
planning
over-the-counter
approval?
for over-the-counter permits. Usually, folks come in with a full permit, not a site permit.
Right.
Usually, the site permit process is really reserved for when there's an expansion and we need to do neighborhood notifications.
Gotcha.
The site permits
Gotcha.
typically, I would say,
Okay.
full. But Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong
So
there.
I think it's an alterations permit you'd be seeking there, because again, to Liz's point, the site permit is more for getting approval for the entitlements, and when you have your entitlements, then you know what you're going to build, and you're in a position to submit your structural drawings, etc.
Gotcha.
So,
Understood. Okay.
From what you just described there, I'm a big fan of the path of least resistance myself, and I would like to hear that the growing family would be able to grow up in the city, and all of these things that we discuss. So you talked about the valuation and it being more than 150K, and then you mentioned that it's more than 150K because you got a complete foundation replacement, you're updating a kitchen. And I think, and to Liz's point, if you meet the criteria for over-the-counter planning review, then I think you'd be just about there for building also, because a foundation replacement in a single-family dwelling that's not a huge amount of plan check. It's probably, it drives up the valuation because you're doing a substantial amount of foundation work, and the kitchen remodel or moving a few walls around is not a huge thing for review in addition to the foundation. That's what I'm hearing from what you're describing. So maybe, Dan Lowry, what do you think if we were provided with a PDF and we can take a look at it and see what's involved and make a quick determination as to whether it would qualify for over-the-counter or not, and maybe your banners can take a look at it too, Liz, and make the same.
Yeah, can I just cut in here? We're really out of time. We're already 5 minutes over. So why don't we, Mark, why don't you follow up with us offline, and we'll take 2 more callers. People who haven't had a chance to speak yet. John, you want to take the last 2 callers?
Okay.
All right, we're going to go with Jake Muldoon. You are unmuted.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Sorry to cut into all your happy hours, so I'll make this quick. I'm an expediter, and I mainly deal with OTC TI permits. So with the move to the new building, it's just kind of hard for me to visualize how the plans are being handed off from one department to the other. And it just kind of seems like there's some room for error or some room for improvement, just to cut down on the wait times and the expectations for the plan reviewers to walk the plans all the way over to the bins. I'm not sure how far the bins are. But I did have an instance where my plan set was kind of lost between fire and PUC, and it took about a week for me to get it resolved and to find the plan set and to get it back to PUC. So my main concern, though, is it's just kind of concerning to look on the PTS and see the line item for the station being blank for like a week. So is it possible to have a plan checker assigned before they pick it out of the bin? Is it possible for like a PPC or a CPB staff member to look at the plans and assign it to a plan checker, just so that there's like a name on the permit tracking system, so we can follow up with them, just in case there's any questions or anything to be done. To be done.
Dan Lowry, on Form 3 permits, submitted permits, we don't have that problem here because the Permit Processing Center is a group that routes the permits to the other agencies, and after every review, it goes back to the Permit Processing Center, so we have better control of that. But on the over-the-counter processor, we have to use boxes right now, and before on Form 8 permits, the design professional used to walk it from station to station. Now we have to hand carry it from station to station. So I think part of the delay is when one one plan checker, say, reviews the plan and goes into another station, there's a box of plans there. So that's where the delay, where the plan checker will sign out on it, but before they input it to the next station, it might sit in the box. So that's the only way we can do it right now during COVID there. We try to find other ways, but, you know, we set up the OTC without the stakeholder being there, but we're actually hand walking the plans from station to station with the plan reviewers. So I think the delay might be there from the time they approve it to the next person getting it assigned to, because it has to go in their bin, and there's several plans in their bin.
Okay, next we'll go with Alex Lansberg. You are unmuted.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm glad I stayed till the very end and was able to get heard. I'm the Research and Advocacy Director with the San Francisco Electrical Construction Industry, the organized part of the industry. And we're, like Kathy said in the beginning, we're working with the Building Safety Alliance on coming up with something resembling a more systematic response. But just from what I've been hearing today, it really sounds, there are a couple things. One is there's really a need for triage, and it sounds like Director O'Riordan sort of recognized that. And I know that they said that they're might be going back and seeing where what you could pull out to try to speed up and free up the bottlenecks. I think that that's a really important thing. But one thing that it really sounds like we have a problem with in terms of this backlog is that the space that we have, or the DBI has, is inadequate for its needs right now. And to that end, I would hope that the department can look into finding some surplus space, some of the city's surplus space, whether indoor or out, recreation centers or whatnot, to be able to sort of do mass intake, to be able to give people the space that they need to be able to go from station to station and to be able to increase the throughput through the system. Because, you know, I was playing with some of your data earlier today, and I'm still working it out, but the rate of clearance, the throughput rate, has dropped significantly, understandably, since COVID. And the number, so the number of actual permits kind of moving through the system, just as a percentage of what's coming in, just what's coming in has dramatically declined. So to the extent that we can look at some of these things, where obviously the industry is more than excited to work with you to try to make this stuff happen, because I think, as Kathy said, and as everyone else has noted, this livelihoods are on the line, jobs are hanging in the balance, clients are, you know, borderline ready to walk. So there's a lot riding on this, and we want to make sure that it gets done right. So thank you very much, and we're looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you. And we're going to do the last question / suggestion. It'll be Will Henderson. Go ahead, Will. You are unmuted.
Oh, thank you. I would just like to really second, not the last gentleman, but the gentleman before, local architect. We have a number of projects under review, and we're getting the question every day by multiple clients, how long is this going to take? And we just can't give them any answer, because what we've seen is it takes multiple weeks to get between station to station, up to a month or more. We've also seen that planning seems to be much more strident about their ADU and rooms down. And we have multiple planners are trying to tell us we're trying to do ADUs when it's single family homes, and they have no interest in ADU. They just want a full bathroom next to their bedroom on a lower level. And so it seems like the process is now that OTC with plans is basically intake. It's taking as long as the intake process took before. And that's just really unfortunate. And so we're unable to tell people how long it's going to take in order to get the project. They're unable to plan, or if they're move out or what. And that really is kind of the crux of our big issue with, you know, we understand COVID's affected everybody, but we can't get back to any sense of normal when we can't plan or tell people kind of any sort of timeline, because we have no idea. Thank you.
And I'll just quickly reply to the comment about rooms down, and for developing the space behind typically garages and residential single-family homes typically. Our department has heard that is one of the biggest complaints for OTC permits from more of a policy perspective, not just on the permit processing side of things. And so under Director Hillis, we are taking a really, really critical look at that policy requirement. And we plan on making some changes to that policy ready to announce, but stay tuned for that, for updates on that coming soon. So thank you for that comment, and we've heard it before and are actively working on some resolutions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're wrapping up the questions, and Christine?
Thank you, John. And then I'm going to hand it off to the director to close the meeting. Please feel free to reach out to us if we didn't get to your question or if you want to continue the dialogue with us. Thank you so much to our partners for participating and for everyone who called in and made a lot of great suggestions and great comments. And we are taking your comments. We've got them all written down, and we'll work on making these improvements to our process. Patrick?
I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for participating. And the purpose of this forum is to listen to you as our customers and listen to your suggestions. And we do, take your suggestions and have conversations and figure out if there's something there that will work for all of us and streamline the process. And we're working every single day with this plan to just get on this backlog and grind on it to make it a lot less than what it is. We know there's a huge impact on you as our customer and the construction community in general with the delays that have come about because of primarily because of COVID-19 and where we've been put in regards to having to abide by these safety protocols, which make it a lot more difficult for us to issue permits like we did pre-COVID. And again, please reach out to us with any suggestions or comments, and thank you for participating.